180 kilometers of water. That's all that separates mainland China from Taiwan. But in the calculus of global power, those 180 kilometers might be the most important stretch of water on Earth. Because this is not just geography. This is a choke point. The most concentrated economic choke point in modern history. And the greatest threat to Western technological dominance? It's not a dramatic amphibious invasion, not a D-Day style assault crossing the strait under fire. The real threat is quieter, more methodical, more surgical. It's the slow, controlled strangulation of Taiwan's supply lines. The numbers behind this are not theoretical. They are absolute. Economic models show that a full-scale disruption involving Taiwan could wipe out $10.6 trillion from the global economy. That's nearly 10% of global GDP. To put that into perspective, that's larger than the combined economic damage of the 2008 financial crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic. This is not just another disruption. This is systemic collapse. And it all comes down to one thing: dependency. The modern world depends overwhelmingly on a single company, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC. It controls over 60% of global foundry capacity, but more importantly, it produces around 90% of the world's most advanced chips, the cutting edge, the chips that power everything. Apple doesn't manufacture its most advanced silicon. Nvidia doesn't. AMD doesn't. They design. TSM builds. Every advanced AI system, every flagship smartphone, every next generation vehicle, they all run through a single point of failure: TSMC's clean rooms. Right now, the global economy is anchored to something incredibly fragile: a centralized technological nervous system that is fully exposed. Because 20% of global maritime trade passes through the Taiwan Strait. If that corridor closes, the system doesn't bend, it breaks. You don't need missiles to stop chip production. You don't need bombs. You just need to stop the ships. That's it. That's the entire mechanism. Taiwan is an island. It does not have the natural resources required to sustain its own industrial output. It depends completely on imports: raw materials, chemicals, rare earth elements, ultra-pure industrial gases, everything required to manufacture semiconductors at atomic scale. And then there's energy, massive amounts of it, stable, continuous, perfectly uninterrupted power. Because when you're manufacturing at the level of 2 nanometers, smaller than a strand of DNA, even a microsecond disruption can destroy months of production. Taiwan's energy grid runs on imported fuel, coal, liquefied natural gas. Cut those imports and the system starts collapsing immediately. War game simulations have already mapped this scenario. If inbound shipping stops, the clock starts ticking fast. Within weeks, energy reserves begin to fall. Natural gas, Taiwan's most critical input, runs out first. Without constant resupply, power generation capacity drops sharply. By week 8, electricity production begins to collapse. By week 9, coal reserves are exhausted, and total energy output falls to just 20% of normal capacity. At that level, you're not running semiconductor fabs. You're barely keeping hospitals running. You're barely keeping the population alive. TSMC cannot function under these conditions, not even partially. Clean rooms require constant climate control, continuous filtration, perfect electrical stability. Without energy, everything stops. No explosions, no airstrikes, just silence. Factories go dark. This is the weaponization of logistics, and it's incredibly effective because it avoids immediate escalation. Instead of launching missiles, an adversary can deploy Coast Guard ships, maritime militia. They board vessels, turn them away, enforce a blockade. Now the burden shifts. If the United States wants to break that blockade, they have to fire first. They have to escalate. They have to sink ships and trigger a superpower conflict. Until that happens, the blockade holds, and time does the rest. Taiwan doesn't need to be invaded. It just needs to be isolated, and then wait it out. As supplies vanish, the economy suffocates. Chemical inputs disappear, energy collapses, and the global supply of advanced semiconductors grinds to a halt. At that point, the West faces an impossible decision because losing Taiwan is not just geopolitical, it's technological. If Taiwan falls, TSMC cannot be allowed to fall intact. That's the reality. Because if an adversary captures TSMC, they don't just gain territory, they gain control of the world's most advanced manufacturing platform instantly. That means compute dominance, AI dominance, technological supremacy. So there is only one viable option: destruction. A scorched earth protocol. If control is lost, the infrastructure must be neutralized, destroyed, because the real value of TSMC is not the buildings, it's the machines, extreme ultraviolet lithography systems, process technology, atomic level calibration. If those systems are destroyed, nothing remains, just dead silicon. But this solution comes at a cost, a massive one. Destroying TSMC doesn't just deny it to an adversary, it removes it from the world completely. And the world cannot replace it quickly, not even close. Building cutting-edge semiconductor fabs takes years, billions of dollars, specialized talent, entire ecosystems. If TSMC disappears, AI development stops immediately. Cloud providers stall. Hardware companies freeze. The entire tech industry hits a wall. This isn't a slowdown. This is forced stagnation. Global industry gets pushed back a decade, maybe more. And all of it traces back to one decision: concentrating the world's computational future in one place. Governments understand this risk. Washington, Brussels, Tokyo, and they are trying to fix it. Massive industrial policies are now in motion. The CHIPS Act in the United States, hundreds of billions in subsidies. Globally, semiconductor companies are expected to invest nearly $1 trillion by 2030. TSMC is building fabs in Arizona. Over $65 billion committed. Intel is investing over $100 billion across the US and Europe. But money doesn't solve everything. You can't buy time. You cannot compress decades of expertise into a few years. And the biggest constraint? It's not capital, it's people. The US semiconductor workforce needs to grow massively to around 460,000 jobs, a 33% increase. That talent doesn't exist, not at scale. You can't run a semiconductor fab with untrained labor. You need engineers, technicians, specialists, and there simply aren't enough. This labor bottleneck guarantees delays, years of them. And even if you solve that, there's another problem. TSMC didn't become dominant by accident. Its ecosystem took over 30 years to build. Suppliers, packaging facilities, testing labs, all tightly clustered, all highly optimized. You can move a factory, but you can't instantly move an ecosystem. And right now, The biggest bottleneck isn't even fabrication, it's packaging. As chips hit physical limits, performance gains come from stacking them. 3D architectures, TSMC's CoWoS technology dominates this space, and it's a critical constraint because advanced AI chips depend on it. Even if you build fabs in Arizona, the packaging layer still lives in Asia. You cannot separate them. So what's happening now is a strategic shift from just-in-time efficiency to just-in-case resilience. But that shift is expensive. Manufacturing in the US costs more. Labor is higher. Construction is slower. Regulation is heavier. TSMC itself admits this. Margins will decline because this system is unnatural. It's forced. Governments are trying to build ecosystems from scratch with subsidies. But ecosystems don't grow on command. And because of that, vulnerability remains for years, which means the global economy is still exposed, completely dependent on a single island. A system that can be shut down without firing a shot. A blockade is not a weapon of force. It's a weapon of math and time. And right now, time is the critical variable because we are trying to rebuild in 5 years what took Taiwan 30 without enough engineers, without enough infrastructure, without enough time. And the markets, they're not pricing this in. TSMC is one of the most profitable manufacturing businesses in history, around 60% gross margins, a near monopoly, protected by physics, but it operates in the most dangerous geopolitical zone on Earth. So here's the real question. If the destruction of TSMC is already part of military contingency planning, how should global markets price that risk? Because the entire AI boom, everything depends on one assumption, that the chips keep flowing. And if the ships stop, that assumption collapses. And when it does, it won't just hit tech. It will take the global economy down with it.